Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the Improvisational Storytelling Podcast, where every week a few friends get together with their randomly designed and randomly contrived story elements, combine them together into a story that you can listen to while you sit by the fire and sip a warm drink. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. We are continuing on our story line from last week and the week before last, the Family Ties storyline. I think that this might be the last episode, so that's good or bad, depending on how you like the story. As the story goes... Currently a recap. As the story goes, the family ties that hold the families together have mysteriously included this outsider, the hero. He's been included in a sort of random selection, a quartet, a fate, bringing three different people from three different clans together to work together. That's one part of the story. The other part of the story is the villain, who is a bastard, who has got together a lot of other people who've been cast out of their families in order to sort of sow discontent and mayhem. That's another aspect of the story we have. Another aspect of the story is the people who have this weird fire-mancing ability. Reed, what's it called again?
They are the keepers of the secret.
Yeah, so they can like take heat out or put heat in. So
Right.
There's some weird stuff going on with that. There's a wise old woman who's kind of a lot of people consider her a nut job because she's always rambling on with weird sayings and things. But the reality is that she's kind of the last of her line. Therefore, all of her ancestors only talk to her instead of sort of talking to all of her possible ancestors. You know, there's only her. She's the only one left. So they all talk to her, just her. Did I miss anything else? Any key factor of the story?
I think
Warring clans. Think like Naruto, kind of before the villages. Just like these small clans who kind of like were at war with each other, right? Just kind of constantly fighting over territory. Some of them growing really big and then having kind of a war and then just kind of getting knocked down a little bit. That kind of a fair synopsis, would you guys say, or no?
Pretty good.
I think so. And I think something that we didn't explain or kind of would explain where this would have all come from, kind of the government type is all kind of a family hierarchy system where it's,
Right.
you know, the elders and the head of households. And so there's a lot of, you know, room for wise elders to take kind of precedent or power in a clan. And there's a lot of room for, let's say, eldest or Weasley family members that are kind of just out for their own gain. But inside of that, there's a lot of just kind of the family elders and tiered head of household systems of what would be kind of all branched down from this one family of, I think, what did we say, 5 kids?
Yeah,
And each
5
of them,
siblings.
5 different siblings to make these ultimately 5 different clans. However, one of them has kind of the fourth one? The fourth one and the third son would have kind of separated himself from all that and is what kind of a disconnected clan of people that don't really know their roots, all kind of on the coastal area where the villain would have originally went out that way to kind of get away because he didn't have a place in the system without being, you know, kind of a part of a family and kind of cast out, where then he would have found this book that someone had in a library out there, 101 ways to get back, you know, at your family. And that's kind of what was the villain's sidekick.
That's it. That was his motivation.
Our hero kind of comes from that area, and he's a kind of a traveling merchant kind of guy, and he comes from there back to this other village where these other clans are and kind of gets brought into them. And then the hero's sidekick, which is Lucy, correct?
Lucy, yeah.
Lucy, and her parents, or her mother in particular, is a keeper of that flame, and their family is of the second son or the third child of this kind of family, original kind of 5 siblings, where then the other one, the eldest, is kind of the hot-headed, you know, always, you know, likes to be in charge of everything. All his kind of descendants are very, you know, riled up very quickly, always trying to prove themselves. And then the second child, the first daughter, is the more kind of, they're very spiritually connected to the ancestors that they hear from and the signs and all the things that the ancestors have have to say. So they're always there. Them and their clan are always kind of playing the kind of the priestly or the spiritual role. And then the third family, the second son, that's where Lucy and her family come from. And they're a lot of times kind of always were the mediator, kind of
the peacemakers.
They were always kind of wise. They always took a little bit extra time to think about something before rashly jumping into anything, and kind of making peace between the older tribes and the younger tribes. And so that's where Lucy and her family come from. And then of course in that the fourth child is the coastal area, and they've kind of years ago gone off. And one of the interesting things too, that is all the coastal people, they don't live as long. And that's one of the things that our hero realized when he came back, was because then the wise old woman is actually, I think it's like would have been like the grandchild or great grandchild of the original of the original family, and yet it's been, years and years, and there's just something, I guess, either, because they're living a fuller life or out in the country, how, I don't know, not that I want to pin it on one thing, but there's something that everyone out in the other place here, they all live much, much longer. And so even though it's been, several hundred years since this original family, the granddaughter, great-granddaughter of the original family is the only surviving member of the kind of the youngest clan.
Right, which is why she gets all of the ancestors' information at once, instead of it kind of being spread out across the whole family, she gets all of it. So typically a clan will grow really large, and then they'll stop hearing from the ancestors, right? Because the voice will get quieter and quieter across the people, and then they will go to war, or they'll try some crazy venture, which will kind of inevitably reduce their numbers. And then the cycle begins again as they become more spiritual because they're hearing from the ancestors again, and they kind of all go back to their roots, and this cycle kind of happens. So that is the recap. 9 minutes in, we're doing good. Better than last 2 times we tried recording. So what story elements did you guys have?
Wise old man.
I have unique pet.
I have unique weapon. Seth, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I kind of going with the Naruto theme. It's been forever since I watched it, so I can't remember who all was who, but I know there was one guy that had like the shadow jutsu.
The shadow jutsu?
It's something where he like I said, it's been forever since I've seen it, so I'm a little rusty on my Naruto stuff. But anyways, drawing from part of that. What's that?
Was he kind of like super bored at around everything?
I think so, yeah.
Oh God.
But anyways, all that's not really important.
I'll come up with it.
Okay.
I'll come up with it.
Okay, but anyway, so I just remember he was one of my favorite guys. But anyways, and so kind of pulling off of his little thing that he had. So the unique pet, it's not so much that whoever has this pet like can control it and then like manipulate and use it to do things, but it's more of like a spy pet where it is
Shikamaru.
Okay, yeah. But anyways, the pet is it's a shadow. So it's like instead of feeding it, they have to like kind of feed it light because it'll die if there's no contrasting thing. If it's pitch black, it'll die. But if it's too bright, then it has nowhere to cast itself. So
if you shine a light on shadow, does he make a shadow, or does he have to exist in the shadows of some real tangible object?
He exists in the shadow or can mimic over the shadow of something else. And so like its owner can then like send him out and he can kind of run around and mimic behind the shadow and like hear and spy. And so it's not like it can do much. It's a physical thing, but it can kind of hop around. And then he has like this little, like a shadow box, or it's like this thing where there's like a small light in there with like a backdrop to cast a shadow, where then it can always, even if it's pitch black outside, it can then kind of jump back into this box, and it'll always be able to then, feed off of having enough light to cast itself, but never too much light that there's nowhere, because if you shone light on it from all directions, well, then there's no shadow to cast.
So the person who the individual who has quote unquote has this pet keeps the box.
Correct.
Is that it? And so he's connected to that person and will kind of do spy for him.
Yeah.
Is he got a mind? Does a shadow kind of have a mind of his own though? Would he, like, if he found something unsavory in his current master, he would try to get someone else to pick up the box?
I don't know. I don't want is it to be, let's say, too, I don't really call it like demonic, like it's some super intelligent independent demon thing that, no, it's a pet. And so it might be intelligent, but not necessarily have a, kind of like a dog. Dogs can be intelligent, but they kind of don't have a mind for themselves outside of kind of serving their master, and so they'll always kind of come back and be really loyal. So it's never like it's so high-minded that it's like a weird independent entity that I don't know. I just think that's weird.
I was kind of thinking of, now that we're talking about anime, I was kind of thinking of like Mushishu, the Mushu Master. Seth?
I think so.
Have you seen those?
Okay, so I think I got a bunch of them, and Isaac had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I watched some of it, but again, years ago.
Basically, yeah, the idea is it's a lot closer to what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's like the idea that there's like these little creatures, and some of them kind of look like spirits, and some of them have like a little bit higher intelligence than other people have, and some of them have like seem evil, but really they're just like wild animals. But they can do different and strange things. And a lot of it's based on, I'm pretty sure, Japanese folklore, but that's kind of what this thing sounds. It's just like an entity that exists, right? And maybe this is like an exceptionally rare one, and if you can tame it, or maybe it likes the smell of the box, or it likes the color of the light that gets cast. It could be like a what's the word? Like the radioactive material that makes things glow.
Right on.
Radium?
Yeah, it's attracted to that. So that's what's in the box, and it's always glowing. So you just open up the lead box, and it sucks. It'll come back in, but then you let it out, and you can train it to do things for you. But there's like things like this everywhere. Little weird creatures that sometimes pass over into the spirit realm, or sometimes the ancestors will send them, if the harvest was really bad, like that whole winter, the ancestors will like pool their power and send these creatures that like cause the lakes to stay warm, and therefore fishing is good all winter, sort of thing. Just like these little tiny, they look like little fish, and they're just flying in the air. And it's like, what are these? They're just like squirrels and birds, And this shadow thing is just I'm taking over your thing totally, Seth, so tell me if I'm wrong. But this shadow thing is just a kind of like a more unique one. Like it's more rare. Maybe
not so much so rare. Maybe it's just rare that anybody is able to tame one. I've got like another image.
That
I want to say it was in maybe I'm thinking the wrong one. Miyazaki, like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah,
there was
Miyazaki. I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm pretty sure I had one of those under my bed when I was growing up.
One of those shadow creatures?
Yeah, it terrified me.
Yeah, they do like dark places, so that would make sense.
Especially if you had a nightlight.
Reed, I'm sure, Reed, that it was just as scared of you as you were of it.
But anyways, I know in like one of his, and again, it's been a while since I watched him, but it was more recent than most of the other things. But I want to say there was like one of those where there was like somewhere, and it was just like all these like little spirit things. And it wasn't so much that they were good or that they were evil. They were just part of the world. And they were just kind of like doing their own thing.
Yeah, no, that seems like a thing that I've seen.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is on.
I think My Neighborhood Totoro, My Friendly Neighbor Totoro, is that what it's called? My Neighbor
Totoro.
No, I have.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that had that.
These kind of mythical creatures out there, which again is Japanese folklore with the different yokai and spirits and things. But anyways, so I think it's something like that. But it's the uniqueness is that probably something like this is very rare for someone to have one, and then a case like this, it's something that whoever has it probably wouldn't display it. They have this shadow that could literally go spy on you wherever you're at.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I don't think I want the villain to have it, but I don't know like if it should either be the hero that has it with his like traveling endeavors, or if it's like a side pet or like a little pet or something that Lucy has, or maybe it's something an even different character has, like maybe one of Lucy's brothers or one of the kids that are in the quartet that either Lucy or our hero has. Does their hero have a name? Can't remember.
Damascus.
I kind of fancied it as in Damascus Steel.
Yeah, that's kind of Reed gave his thing first, and then I came up with the name Damascus, and that's kind of one of the reasons why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the hero is going to have to change a lot and fold 1,000 times. It's going to have to fold 1,000 times.
Going to fold to the pressure.
Yeah, 1,000 times. I like it. That sounds good. Reed, do you want to talk about your wise old man, or do you want to hear my unique weapon?
I'll just introduce the wise old man. He'd actually grown up kind of in the town, near the town where Lucy's family and had their mill.
Right.
But his extended family they had some holdings years ago, but they never were one of the prominent members. They were never thought of as the material, the kind of character of people that should be in charge of anything. And
right.
He had some of his family had turned to crime and further tarnished the family name. So he had decided to go off in the world and make his own way. And he got into smithing. And he got the nickname Banger because he was really good with a hammer. And he was kind of grizzled by now, kind of gray-headed, but just solid wire. The guy was really tough. And he could handle a hammer, like I say. And one of the things that had happened over the years is that his clan had dwindled, and he had this same effect as the wise old woman, in that his ancestors, the input of his ancestors, focused on him. So
louder than normal.
Yep. And one of the things that happened is that he had this gift to tie into the magic system, where he was one of the keepers of the secret of the flame. And it really helped, of course, in his smithing business, where you could, you're trying to you could draw heat from the surrounding objects or environment to keep the piece you were working at exactly the right temperature.
Right.
And it helped for kind of skillful. It assisted in him being really skillful in what he did. And so he came back and kind of hoping to reestablish a new name for himself, so to speak, and got a job with Lucy's dad at the mill. And so he's there and ready to contribute, ready to do what's best for this country. No, I don't know.
He bleeds the old red, white, and blue.
So he's kind of an outsider, but he's like an insider who's an outsider.
Yeah, he is just never, his group had never been, one of the prominent. His clan had never been one of the prominent clans.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you want to hear about the unique weapon now?
Yep.
All right. The Keepers of the Secret Flame. That's not as new of a thing as people would like to believe. The only reason why people think it's new is because it's been rediscovered now here hundreds of years later. The unique weapon is a weapon made a long time ago, a weapon made by a certain father. This father had 5 children, and he was a vast and terrible and powerful influence. Think Arthur Hawking. Think King Arthur. Think Alexander the Great. Think Genghis Khan, right? He had, in his heyday, a sword made for himself out of a material that no one understands how it exists. And the sword was placed in a volcano, where the sword was created from a material that basically absorbed heat. It was kind of like how a vacuum works. Like if you have a pot of water and you have a pot of water that's lower than it, and you start the vacuum. So what happened is before he died, he went down into the volcano that was about to erupt, and he stabbed it into the ground, and he began the suction of pulling the heat from the ground into the sword, right? And then he began that work, but because of the way that the sword stores energy, it continued. And he died because obviously getting into a volcano is death because of like sulfuric gas and stuff like that. But unbeknownst to everyone else, what this did is he saved this continent from being destroyed by a volcanic eruption. But what he also did was create a sword that had all of the heat and energy of a volcano inside of it. And here it's been sitting inside of this now dormant volcano, now almost gone volcano because all the heat has been pulled out of it for hundreds of years. And all you need to do is you need to find someone who can create for you a tungsten sheath in order to hold it, and create for you and have that person be well acquainted with the sort of application of this Keeper of the Secret Flame in order to keep the raw heat that is kind of pulsing from this sword at all times at bay until you want to let it out. It's basically a source of infinite heat.
So it could only be wielded by a keeper of the secret of the flame, because you'd have to have like the special glove where the guy would just channel the heat from the glove from reaching through and burning his hand, and he would create a bubble around this thing to keep from just igniting everything.
The air from igniting the air on fire.
Right. But when he unleashed the power of this sword, when he wielded this sword in battle, I could see it being a pretty devastating thing.
Right. And,
I like the whole idea. When I was thinking about this Secret of the Flame, tungsten has like a melting point of 6,192 degrees Fahrenheit. Like it's the like lava is like less than half of that, right?
Right, exactly. Which means you can functionally cut through anything.
Yeah.
Except for tungsten with this with this sword.
Yeah. But you'd have to keep it like continue to wield it. You'd have to completely.
That's the thing is that yes, now you would have to, but like there, it's said that whoever that anyone could pick up the sword, and that's what I'm saying. It's made of a material that can basically conduct heat.
Well, it just absorbs the heat from the tungsten
perfectly,
sheath, right?
Yeah.
So it's safe in the tungsten sheath,
right?
And just sitting there smoldering.
It's one of those things, Reed, like Chuadun Kai, I think that's how you say it, from Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Right? A thing that a person who can channel the one power can hold on to and can cut the world in half.
Yeah.
And it's like, somehow you can do this. It shouldn't be possible, but you can. It's like, it is possible to pick up the sword and to use it, but to it requires a dexterity or an understanding of the way of the fire or whatever they called, before it was lost to time.
Right.
But the sword has now resurfaced. My thought is that someone or something basically twisted the sword. So it was in this sort of constant state of pulling, and that it was up far north, right? And it had basically been pulling the heat out of the atmosphere. And it was like a stormy, terrible, windy, always cold, strangely, terrifyingly cold all the time thing. But someone traveled up there and reversed the flow. And now, all of a sudden, it's like quick melt. Everything is like in disaster mode. Anyways, if the sword doesn't do anything, if the sword is never wielded by anyone, that's fine. It's just going to have, it has like an impact on like how the world is like moving, because this thing that people were kind of sure that this was the reality is that the north was impassable, that you couldn't go there. All of a sudden, it's not like thawing out though. It's like burning. It's like it's melting and then lighting on fire as well, Anyways, that is the unique weapon.
Okay, so I have a slight idea here. Okay,
let's hear it.
So, see, the wise old man, I'm thinking maybe he's a keeper of the sacred flame, correct? Okay,
yes.
So he has just come back from up north, and maybe he's not sure what he's done, but he was looking for this blade. I'm going to say, if this is cool with everybody, I'm going to say he is, let's say, like an uncle to Lucy's mother. So it'd be like Lucy's great uncle. And his clan that he comes from was like a branch clan of the coastal people, but like a branch of it, or that kind of mixed with some of the other clans and then had settled like halfway between. And so they had a little bit of dealings with both sides. However, he's kind of like the last end of that. So basically what it's setting up is that he would care. So most of the people on the coast, they've kind of left this whole thing. So one of the things going on is the ancestors and all the people from the ancestors trying to reach out to that clan that has now kind of cast itself away, is looking for people. And he's, let's say, one of the only people that has listened. And so that's why it's so prominent with him as well, is because he's, let's say, attuned and listened. And then in one of his things that he's done is he's actually gone up and he found the sword, and maybe it reacted to him like finding, but then it switched. And so it went from cold, all of a sudden everything started like lava and exploding and melting or whatever it was. And so he like escaped. And so maybe that's something that then he comes back and then comes to the mill and is kind of then hiding out here now as like the north is changing, and then now you've got the villain coming in. I think maybe him and Lucy and Damascus, and like then they're on a quartet go on this quest to then, it's like, okay, well, this sword, and if someone can wield this, which then I think maybe Lucy could, if she's also a keeper of this sacred flame, which she learned from her mother, who would have probably learned from, her uncle and some of that other part of that family. And I don't know if it would be like an Excalibur thing, but like by wielding that, you would be king. You'd be the ruler, something that people of, let's say, like the eldest clan has always kind of vied that they were the eldest. And so they've always kind of held this higher progeny. That's the right word.
I don't know. It sounds kind of like
sounds
it is.
Right enough. They just kind of like held themselves kind of lofty above everybody. And so, but if like word has got around that there is this sword that was like that, it was their great whatever grandfather, like that was his sword. That's why they were so prominent. That's why, and it was hidden away. And so now then it's like, it's always been that thing that if you could find it, then you could prove that you were the true, let's say, lineage. You were the kind of like Excalibur. If you were able to pull the sword from the stone, you held like divine right.
Right. Well, like all of everyone's great ancestor was the king, and he held the sword. So whoever holds the sword kind of gets to make the decisions at that point.
And so I think that is like one of their little side quests where then maybe the villain, like, I don't know, like an Indiana Jones thing where there's like 3 or 4 groups that are all trying to like get to the Ark first kind of thing.
I was kind of thinking that like the passes started to melt, right? And so these countries that typically were kind of like Clan A would never invade Clan D because the pass is way too difficult to get a thing over. All of a sudden, these things start to melt, and it's like it's wartime. It's time for war. The thing is melting. The ancestors have seen fit to have this happen to us. And now it's time for us to take our place.
Prove ourselves amongst the rest of the clans who's boss. So I think that's kind of what's happening. Then you have the kind of the bastard and his group coming in. And I think we kind of revealed this at the end, which we'll get to that in a minute. So basically, they go off to find the sword. I think eventually what happens is Lucy is able to wield the sword. However, at the same time, kind of through our hero, through Damascus, kind of bonding with her and the clan and kind of settling in here, I think they fall in love and they get married. However, then that facilitates a kind of a channel for the ancestors to come back through for the coastal clan, because that's where their lineage then also holds.
Right.
So now you have a rebirth of that clan. However, that majority part of that clan has all cast themselves off. But now you have, the 2 of them, they have now kind of channeled in a majority of that power now of, the ancestors of that clan, rebirthing that clan, along with, I think we had decided on the last episode that the wise old woman was going to basically, once they defeated the villain and kind of the rest of the outcasts and the, miscreant castaways had nowhere to go, she adopts them, basically reviving the 5th clan.
That clan as well.
In kind of an upturn, you have basically it ending kind of with that, but then you have now the rebirth of now that 4th clan, like as a superpower and the kind of the rightful heir kingship line through Damascus and Lucy.
Right.
And
I had the thought that part of the antagonist for this story would be the fact that since that sword is basically messing up the system in the north, that all of the seasons are off, all of the patterns are off. Basically, everything is in discord because everything is kind of all being messed up by this just thing that's happening up north, right? And that is why why he went up there is because he wanted to fix. He wasn't just like up there looking for the sword to have fun. He understood kind of the natural way of life and how there should be patterns to things and how those patterns are being messed up. It's like if the snow doesn't melt on the mountains and we don't get like flooding in the spring, things aren't going to be good. Things are going to be okay for a while, but they aren't going to be good in the long term. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that gets kind of righted by this whole thing happening. And I kind of have the idea that the sword gets lost and like basically not restarts the volcano, but basically the idea is that it like pushes all the power back and somehow it's lost at the end, if that's okay with everyone.
I'll sleep easier.
Yeah, sure.
That's good.
As much as I want a really cool sword that you can Because imagine the other end of the spectrum as well. You could like stab someone and then just pull all of the
Heat out of their body. They turn
heat
into
out of
an
their body.
icicle.
Yeah, just like immediately, just
Yeah.
Or the other way around, you stab someone
And
and then they just like turn to dust. Perfect. It's a perfect conduit of heat. Anyways, you guys happy with this story?
Yeah.
I'm happy.
I like everyone's little parts. I think that this one really I think I'd read this book. I'd watch this anime. Wait, I already did. It's called Naruto. No, I would watch this anime. It'd be kind of a fun clans and family dynamics, and there'd be that kind of weirdness, and then
I
all
think you can
the
make
other
it different enough from Naruto that it would be not necessarily plagiarism.
Yeah. I mean, I like Naruto a lot, so that's my own fault. I have to figure out a way to make it not plagiarism. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you liked this episode, this series of episodes, let us know. Send us an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. Otherwise, you can catch us on iTunes and other places where you get Stitcher. I think we're on Stitcher, and we're on Spotify and Android podcasts, everywhere, literally everywhere. We're everywhere. We're in your closet right now. We're under your bed, waiting for you to listen to an episode. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Bye.